He thought followers made him invincible. He thought likes were a shield. When Lawson Briggs walked into the gas station that morning, he believed nothing in this little coastal town could touch him. Not the clerk he was about to humiliate on camera. Not the people who'd watch and do nothing. What he didn't count on was a quiet stranger with a scar on his jaw, and a German shepherd who knew the difference between a joke and true danger. The fog rolled in off the Pacific like wet smoke, swallowing the two-lane highway that hugged the Oregon cliffs. It softened the edges of the world, pine trees, power lines, faded billboards, until they all looked like ghosts of themselves. Gabriel Mercer didn't mind. After 12 years as an Air Force pararescueman, he was used to seeing the world through different kinds of haze. Dust storms in Afghanistan, rotor wash in the Hindu Kush, snow torn sideways by Arctic winds. Fog was gentle by comparison. It stayed outside the windshield. It didn't claw at your lungs. His battered blue Tacoma rumbled along the road, paint sun-faded and scarred. In the passenger seat sat Atlas, a sable German shepherd with intelligent gold eyes and a body built more like a coiled spring than a pet. He wore a simple leather collar now, but the ghost of his old harness seemed to cling to him, a memory of patches, carabiners, fast-rope descents, and midnight calls. Atlas watched the fog with the focus of a soldier. His ears tracked every distant engine, every gull's cry, every change in the wind. "We're almost there," Gabe murmured, one hand loosely on the wheel, the other reaching over to scratch behind Atlas's ear. "Gas, caffeine, and whatever passes for breakfast in this town. Then maybe, for once, a quiet day." Atlas huffed, as if he didn't quite believe in quiet. A green sign emerged from the mist. Harbor's End, pop. 304, next right. Gabe took the turn. The town unfolded slowly. A string of weather-worn houses, a shuttered bait shop, a church with peeling white paint, and a marquee that read, "Grace arrives before we deserve it." He passed a marina filled with bobbing fishing boats, their masts like bare trees, then turned into the gravel lot of a low, square building squatting beside the highway. Harbor, Mart, and Grill. The sign buzzed faintly. One of the letters in Grill dead, so it just promised Grill set at L. It was the kind of place truckers relied on, locals took for granted, and tourists never noticed. Perfect. Gabe parked near the side, away from the front windows, habit more than necessity. Atlas sat up, scanning the lot. A single rusted sedan, a boxy delivery van, no people outside. Gabe killed the engine. "Stay close," he said. Atlas waited for the hand signal before hopping down, the same silent language they had used jumping from helicopters and loading into C-130s. Out here, on a sleepy Oregon morning, the ritual felt almost ridiculous. Almost. The chill bit through Gabe's gray t-shirt as they crossed the gravel. He inhaled the smell of ocean salt, diesel, and frying bacon. For the first time in weeks, his shoulders loosened a fraction. A bell over the door chimed as they stepped inside. The interior was split down the middle. To the left, rows of shelves with chips, canned soup, oil, and fishing lures. To the right, a short lunch counter with 6 swivel stools and 3 small booths. A grill hissed behind the counter, where a woman in her early 40s flipped pancakes with the empty-eyed efficiency of someone who'd been up since before dawn. She had dark hair pulled into a low ponytail, a name tag that read Maya, and a faded sweatshirt advertising the local high school. At the register stood a teenage boy, tall and lanky, with a mop of black curls and the awkwardness of someone not yet used to his own limbs. He was stacking cigarette cartons, lips moving as he counted. The bell drew his eyes up. "Morning," he said. "Pump or food?" "Both," Gabe replied. "Tank on 3, and whatever passes for strong coffee." The kid's face broke into a quick grin. "Only kind we make. I'm Eli, by the way. Just started here last month, so if the register explodes, it's not my fault." "Good to know," Gabe said. His voice was low, steady. "I'm Gabe. This is Atlas." Eli leaned over the counter to look. "Whoa." His eyes widened. "He's massive." Atlas, as if sensing admiration, sat with perfect posture, tail barely moving, gaze fixed somewhere between alert and relaxed. "He friendly?" Eli asked. "Depends who you are," Gabe said. "He's trained. You can say hi, just don't grab him." Eli extended his hand slowly, palm down. Atlas sniffed, then gave the boy a single, dignified lick. "Guess I'm approved," Eli said, pleased. From behind the grill, Maya glanced over. There were faint bruised shadows under her eyes, the kind that came from too many early shifts and not enough sleep. "Want a menu or you trust me?" she called. "I trust you," Gabe answered. "Brave man," she muttered, but there was a ghost of a smile there. "Sit wherever you want. Coffee's coming." Gabe chose the booth in the back corner, where he could see both the door and the side exits. Atlas slid under the table without being told, facing the entrance, chin on paws, but eyes never still. The coffee arrived in a white mug with a chipped rim. It was dark, hot, and tasted like burnt earth. It was perfect. For a few minutes, the world shrank to simple things. The clink of utensils, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the hiss of bacon on the grill, Eli's quiet muttering as he double-counted the till. It was a fragile piece, and like every fragile thing in Gabe's life, it shattered loud. It started as a sound more felt than heard, a distant, aggressive roar of an oversized engine revving too high and too often. Atlas's ears pricked, his head lifted. Then came the squeal of tires on wet pavement. A truck door slammed hard, like someone slapping a table to make a point. The bell above the door jangled violently as it flew open. Noise entered with the fog. A young man swaggered in, all neon and noise and sharp edges. He wore a white hoodie with a designer logo splashed across the chest. Joggers so clean, they didn't belong near oil or gravel, and sneakers that looked like they cost more than the grill. His hair was styled in an undercut that took time and money, and a phone was already in his hand, camera facing outward, red recording light on. Behind him trailed two other guys and a girl with a ring light attached to her phone, already filming. "Check this out, squad," the lead guy said, voice loud and slick, echoing off the convenience store's low ceiling. "Welcome back to Lawson Live, where we turn boring into content." He swung the phone around, capturing shelves, the counter, Eli, Maya, at the grill. Atlas's low rumble started under the table, a sound so deep it barely qualified as a growl, more like a warning from the earth itself. Gabe dropped a hand to the dog's shoulder. "Easy," he murmured. The teenager behind the counter stiffened. "Morning," Eli said, carefully neutral. "Can I help you?" Lawson zoomed in on his face. "Help me?" Lawson scoffed. "Yeah, man, you can help me by not falling asleep standing up. Look at this, guys. Harbor's End's finest customer service. Say hi to the internet, bro." The girl with the ring light giggled. "Wave, Eli," one of Lawson's friends muttered. "It's good for exposure." Eli's cheeks flushed. He forced a weak smile and lifted a hand. "Hi," he said. "Lame," Lawson announced. "Okay, here's the challenge. I'm gonna give this..." He squinted at the name tag. "Eli here. What? $50 if he can scan 10 items in 10 seconds without screwing up. If he fails, he has to sing. Like, for real." "Deal?" Eli's eyes darted to Maya. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't step in. "You didn't own a little place off the highway by arguing with customers, especially customers wearing $300 in sneakers." "I really shouldn't be on his video," Eli started. "Company policy." But Lawson was already sweeping items into his arms. Energy drinks, chips, a random can of chili, dumping them onto the counter in a dramatic pile. "Timer starts now!" he shouted, phone inches from Eli's face. Eli fumbled with the scanner. One can slipped, landing with a clatter that echoed louder than it should have. "Oops," Lawson crowed. "Look at that coordination, guys." From the corner, Gabe watched silently, his face unreadable. He'd seen men bully with guns, with fists, with political power. The weapon here was laughter, a public shaming broadcast to strangers who'd never set foot in Harbor's End. Atlas's rumble deepened. "Lawson," Maya said tightly, flipping a pancake with more force than necessary. "Take your drinks and go. We're busy." "Busy?" Lawson swung the camera toward her, catching the grease stains on her sweatshirt, the tired lines around her mouth. "Busy burning breakfast?" A few viewers watching the live stream would later comment about the look in Maya's eyes, that flash of something hard beneath the exhaustion. "Stop filming my staff," she said. "You have your content. That's enough." Lawson laughed. "Relax, it's free publicity. Harbor Mart and Gree, as he sprays, Ellie should be paying me. My dad's company just renovated the marina. You're welcome, by the way. Eli's hand shook as he scanned the last can. The register beeped the wrong price, and he flinched. Time! Lawson shouted. He swung the camera back to Eli. And fail. Ooh, that's heartbreaking. You know what that means, Internet? His friends chimed in on cue. Sing, sing, sing. Eli swallowed. I'm not... Lawson leaned over the counter, invading his space, phone inches from his nose. Come on, man. Rules are rules. Just one verse. I'll even auto-tune it later. You want to go viral or not? Eli's eyes flicked helplessly to Maya. She glared at Lawson. Enough, she said. Put the phone down and leave. You're harassing my kid. Your kid. Gabe's gaze sharpened. Harassing? Lawson repeated, mock offended. Lady, this is content. I'm giving him a shot at fame. You should be thanking me. He pivoted, sweeping his arm in a grand gesture. His elbow clipped the edge of the display rack stacked with cheap ceramic souvenir mugs. Time slowed, the rack tipped. A dozen mugs crashed to the floor, shattering loud and sudden. Atlas jolted, half rising from under the table. Gabe's hand tightened on his collar. Lawson stared at the mess, then down at his spotless sneakers, dotted with shards and coffee stains. You've got to be kidding me, he snapped. That's coming out of my paycheck, Eli breathed. No, Maya said quietly. It's not. But Lawson had already chosen his target. He swung his phone back to Eli. Did you see that, guys? He said, voice heated now. Dude just knocked an entire rack over and didn't even apologize. Typical. I didn't... Don't you dare blame my son, Maya said, the calm she'd been clinging to. Slipping. You broke it, you pay for it, then you leave. Lawson laughed once, sharp. You know who I am? He asked. The room went very still. Maya's eyes flicked to the window, where a massive billboard loomed over the parking lot. Briggs Coastal Developments in bold letters, with a smiling man in a suit and a logo that matched the one on Lawson's hoodie. Yeah, she said. I do. Then you know my dad owns half this town, Lawson said. And he's about to own this lot too, once the deal goes through. You'll be lucky if they keep you onto stock shelves. He paused, smirk curling. In the meantime, he pulled a wad of cash from his pocket, peeled off 100, and flicked it toward the floor where the shards lay. It landed in the middle of the broken mugs, instantly soaking up spilled coffee. There, that should cover your little disaster, he sneered. Go on, pick it up. Maya stared at the bill lying in the puddle. Her jaw worked. For a second, she looked like she might walk out from behind the grill and slap him. Instead, she reached for a towel. I'm not picking anything up until you shut that camera off, she said. Eli moved around the counter with a broom and dustpan. I'll get it, he muttered. Lawson stepped in front of him, blocking his path, phone still inches away. No, the star doesn't clean up his own mess, he said. He sings for it. That's the deal. Eli stopped, breathing shallow. Gabe watched the boy's shoulders hunch, watched the way his hand curled tighter around the broom handle, watched a pair of customers at the far shelves turn their heads away, pretending to compare brands of motor oil. Everyone knew this script. Everyone had played their part before. Everyone except him. Atlas's growl turned into a low, vibrating warning. Gabe's decision was made in a quiet, simple moment, like choosing to step through a door. He slid out of the booth without haste, coffee mug still in his hand. He crossed the store floor with measured steps, not fast enough to spook, not slow enough to feel like a threat. Lawson barely glanced at him. This doesn't concern you, man, Lawson said, raising his voice for the camera. Unless you want a cameo. Gabe stopped a few feet away, positioning himself between Lawson and Eli. Atlas sat at his heel, ears forward, body straight, a silent wall of muscle and focus. This stops, Gabe said. He didn't shout. He didn't snarl. His voice was calm, deep, and carried the weight of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Lawson blinked. I'm filming, he said. You can't just... Gabe lifted one finger and pointed at the phone. Turn it off, he said. Now! Laughter bubbled up from Lawson's friends, nervous and high. You serious? One of them nudged the other. Dude thinks he's in a movie. Lawson switched the camera to selfie mode, catching Gabe in the frame. Guys, tell me this isn't the most dramatic gas station hero you've ever seen, he said to his audience. Bro, you have like main character syndrome. Go sit down. You're blocking my shot. Gabe took a half step closer, not enough to touch, enough to make Lawson feel how little distance there really was. You're humiliating a kid and his mother for entertainment, he said. You knocked their stuff over. You're trying to make them grovel while half the town watches you do it. That ends now. For the first time, Lawson's gaze really took him in, broad shoulders under the plane. T-shirt, the faded scar running from Gabe's right ear to his jaw, the calm, unblinking eyes that didn't flinch from confrontation. His smirk faltered, just a fraction. You threatening me? Lawson asked. The volume of his voice went up, not for Gabe, but for the microphone. I'm setting a boundary, Gabe replied. Atlas shifted forward an inch, reading the subtle change in Gabe's breathing, the almost imperceptible tension in his jaw. The dog's eyes locked on Lawson's center mass. Back up, man, Lawson said. You and your mutt, or I swear I'll... Atlas's lips peeled back for a split second, flashing white teeth. Gabe's fingers brushed his collar. Atlas, heel, he said. The dog obeyed instantly, sitting again, but the message was clear. He wasn't afraid. Maya stepped around the counter, wiping her hands on her apron. Sir, she said to Gabe, voice tight with a gratitude she didn't dare show too much. It's fine, really. Just go back to your booth. We'll handle it. You've been handling it for a long time, Gabe said, eyes never leaving Lawson. How's that been working out? Her shoulders slumped. She didn't answer. Lawson sensed his audience slipping. His voice sharpened, edged with something brittle. You don't get it, he said. You're a nobody passing through my town. You don't just walk in and talk to me like... He cut himself off. A new idea flashed across his face. You know what? He said, suddenly smooth. You want the show to end? Fine. It ends when the cops get here. He turned the camera back on himself, angling it to capture the store behind him. Hey guys, he said, now in full performance mode. So I came in for some snacks, and this dude, this drifter with a huge dog, went ballistic. He's screaming at the staff, threatening me. His dog almost lunged. I'm okay, but I'm kind of shaken. We're calling the sheriff because this is not okay. He stopped streaming, thumb stabbing at the screen. Then, without breaking eye contact with Gabe, he hit 3 numbers. Yeah, Lawson said as soon as the dispatcher picked up. His voice transformed, quivering, high, expertly frightened. I need help. I'm at Harbor Mart on Highway 9. There's a guy here. I think he's homeless, or high or something. He's threatening the clerk, he put his hands on me, and he's got this massive aggressive dog. It almost attacked me. I barely got away from him. He's unstable. Please send someone quick. Silence on their end. Lawson softened his tone, weaving in the right buzzwords. Yeah, he said. I'm Lawson Briggs, my uncle Sheriff Harlow. He'll know who I am. He listened for another moment, then hung up. Congratulations, Lawson said to Gabe, the raw edge of his earlier fear now hidden behind satisfaction. You just escalated. They'll be here in like 2 minutes, and when they ask who they should believe, well, he tapped the logo on his hoodie. Money, name, blood. Gabe studied him, then reached into his back pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He slid a few bills from it, crouched down, and placed them carefully on the counter, far from the puddle and shards. That's for the mugs, he said to Maya, for what it's worth. You don't have to, she began. I do, he replied. Atlas shifted, restless. The air in the small store had grown thick, charged. In the distance, faint at first, then clearer, came the rising wail of a siren. The sheriff's department didn't trickle in. It descended. Red and blue lights strobed through the front windows as 3 patrol SUVs swung into the gravel lot, tires spitting rocks. Doors flew open. The fog, lit by the flashing bars, looked like it was on fire. Atlas sat up straight, muscles tightening. Quiet, Gabe said. The bell above the door screamed against the force as the first deputy pushed in, hand already on his holstered weapon. Behind him, 2 more spread out, hands near their own guns, eyes wide and jumpy. Hands where I can see them! The lead deputy barked, voice cracking with adrenaline. Now! Gabe didn't move yet. He looked at Maya and Eli. Get behind the counter, he said quietly. Now! They obeyed, ducking low. He set his coffee cup down with exaggerated care, then lifted his hands slowly, fingers spread. Atlas stayed by his leg, eyes locked on the deputies. "Get that dog away from him," the lead yelled. "Leash him or I'll shoot." That was the moment. The one Gabe had seen coming, the one he'd hoped wouldn't arrive. He glanced down at Atlas. In those gold eyes he saw reflection and memory, rotor blades, ropes, screaming casualties, nights on mountainsides where the dog's nose had meant the difference between life and death. He would not let Atlas die on a gas station floor because a frightened man needed to feel powerful. "Atlas," Gabe said, voice dropping into that deep, threaded command tone that cut through chaos. "Down. Stay." The dog hesitated a fraction of a second, just long enough to glance from the deputies back to Gabe, then lay flat, body tight as a coiled wire, but still. "Kid, get a leash on that animal," the second deputy barked at Eli. "He's trained," Gabe said. "He's not a threat." "You don't get to decide that," the lead snapped. "Get on your knees, face down, right now." A few feet away, Lawson slipped in behind the deputies, staying just close enough to see, just far enough to avoid danger. His hoodie was pristine. His hands trembled in exactly the right, performative amount. "That's him," Lawson said loudly, pointing. "He grabbed me, he yelled at my mom, at the clerk, and he sicked his dog on me. It was barking in my face. I thought I was going to get mauled." "That's a lie," Maya hissed from behind the counter. "He's lying." "Ma'am, stay out of this," a deputy ordered, not turning his head. Gabe slowly shifted, then sank to his knees, hands still up. He laid forward until his cheek pressed against the cool tile, careful not to move too fast. "I'm complying," he said calmly. "Don't shoot my dog." Hands grabbed his wrists, wrenching them back. Metal bit into his skin as the cuffs clamped down too tight. Atlas let out a single, strangled whine. "Don't move!" the lead shouted at the dog. His hand shook on the grip of his gun. Maya rose a little from behind the counter. "Stop!" she cried. "He didn't do anything. Lawson came in here filming. The deputy swung his gun toward her. "Ma'am!" he yelled. "Down!" She froze, tremor in her hands. Eli pulled her back down, eyes wide with shock. On the floor, tasting dust and spilled coffee, Gabe shut his eyes. "This is not Afghanistan. This is not a hot LZ. These are people who are supposed to protect." He forced his voice steady. "My name is Gabriel Mercer," he said. "Staff Sergeant, United States Air Force Pararescue, currently on medical leave out of Cannon Air Force Base. My dog is a retired military working dog with commendations for search and rescue. You shoot him, you're destroying federal property and killing an officer who has done more for this country than any of you." There was a flicker of uncertainty in the second deputy's eyes. The lead's jaw clenched. "We'll sort that out at the station," he said. "Right now, you're under arrest for assault, disorderly conduct, and threatening with a dangerous animal." He yanked Gabe to his feet, shoving him toward the door. Behind him, Atlas scrambled to follow, but a catch pole looped suddenly around his neck, yanking him back. An animal control officer had appeared from somewhere outside, the long pole shaking in her hands. "Easy, easy," she murmured, more to Atlas than to anyone else. "I got you, big guy. I got you." Atlas didn't snap, didn't bite. He gagged against the pressure, claws scrabbling on the tile as he tried to keep Gabe in sight. "Atlas!" Gabe called over his shoulder, heart cracking in a way bullets never had. "Stay, I'm right here." Atlas barked, a raw sound of confusion and protest that drew stares from passing cars as they shoved Gabe into the back of the squad SUV. The door slammed. The world narrowed to flashing lights and the image of Atlas, hauled toward a white animal control van, eyes wide, tail tight between his legs, for the first time since Gabe had known him. A knot of cold rage settled in Gabe's chest. They had taken his freedom. They were not going to take his dog's life. The sheriff's station in Harbor's End was bigger than the town deserved. 2 floors of brick and glass at the edge of Main Street, built with money that hadn't come from bake sales or fundraisers. Gabe noticed that, even with his hands cuffed behind him. He also noticed the brass plaque near the front entrance, barely visible through the haze of red and blue lights. Dedicated through the generous support of Briggs Coastal Developments. Of course. They marched him inside, through a lobby that smelled of coffee, cleaning supplies, and stale fear, then into a small concrete room with a table bolted to the floor and a single metal chair. They chained one of his cuffed wrists to a ring on the table, The door shut with a solid, echoing thud. Silence fell, a thin, brittle thing. Gabe flexed his fingers against the cuff, feeling the metal bite skin. He rolled his shoulders once, easing the worst of the strain. He was not thinking about charges, or court, or what people out there would say. He was thinking about Atlas. He pictured the dog shoved into a cage in some backlot, confused and alone, remembering cages in military transports, in deployment kennels. But those cages had always ended with Gabe, with missions, with purpose. This cage would smell like fear and bleach and death. He slowed his breathing. Inhale, 3. Hold, 3. Exhale, 3. The same pattern he used over drop zones and over open water. Worry wouldn't help Atlas. Strategy would. He needed one call. Out in the bullpen, Deputy Noah Price stared at the screen on his desk and felt something in his gut go wrong. He'd been in uniform for only 18 months, long enough to learn the rhythms of Harbor's End, bar fights on Friday nights, noise complaints from the RV park, the occasional drunk who thought the Pacific looked friendly. Not long enough to learn to ignore the itch that came when something didn't fit. He replayed the dash cam feed from their arrival at Harbor Mart. The man, Gabriel Mercer, had been on his knees, hands high. The dog had been lying flat, no lunge, no charge. He toggled to Lawson's live stream, forwarded to him by a friend who knew he was on duty. The live had cut right as Lawson panicked. But the comments before that? Bro, you knocked that rack over, LOL. Leave the kid alone, ha 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 ha. Why you making that dude sing? No mention of an attack, no terror, just amusement at a bully performing for his audience. Noah scrubbed his thumb over his badge. He'd grown up in this town. He'd watched Briggs Money buy fireworks, new uniforms for the football team, this very building. He knew the unspoken rule, don't cross the people who sign the checks. But he'd also grown up with a dad who wore a different uniform, Forest Service green, and who taught him that laws meant nothing if you only applied them to the powerless. A new email flashed on his screen. Subject line, Harbor Mart video. Urgent. He clicked. A link to the store's security footage, sent by Maya herself. Noah opened it. The grainy black and white image left no room for spin. Lawson knocking the mugs. Lawson throwing the 100 into the mess. Lawson stepping in front of Eli, phone shoved in his face. The yelled that stranger, Gabe, didn't shove, didn't grab. He simply stood between. Noah leaned back, an unpleasant cold settling over his shoulders. He hit print. The office printer hummed angrily as it spat out pages. Sheriff Dean Harlow was in his 50s, with a gut that strained his uniform and a face tanned unevenly by years of patrol car windshields. He'd been elected 3 times, each campaign ad funded by a certain familiar name. He strode into the interrogation room with a file folder under one arm and self-assured irritation in his eyes. So, he said, sitting opposite Gabe with theatrical sigh, this is the part where you tell me what the hell you were thinking. Gabe didn't look up. I was thinking a kid shouldn't be forced to sing on camera for a grown man's entertainment, he said. I was thinking a woman shouldn't have to pick her wages up off the floor, and I was thinking your deputies were about to shoot my dog. Harlow's jaw tightened. You put yourself in the middle of a situation that wasn't yours, he snapped. You frightened my nephew. You terrified my town. That dog of yours is a weapon. Gabe's eyes lifted now, slow and dangerous. That weapon has pulled 5 people out of collapsed buildings and 3 from avalanche slides, he said. He's found missing kids in the dark when your guys couldn't. He has more discipline in one paw than your nephew has in his entire body. Harlow's grip on the folder whitened his knuckles. You're not in the sandbox anymore, Sergeant, he said. You're in my jurisdiction. Out there, you're a big hero. In here, you're just a vagrant with a dog and an attitude. Now, you can make this easy and sign a statement that says, you lost your temper, you'll pay for damages, and you'll be on the next bus out of town. Maybe we look the other way about the dangerous dog and just insist he never comes back. And if I don't sign? Gabe asked. Harlow leaned back. Then I start making calls, he said. Animal control, state board. I tell them we had an unregistered aggressive German shepherd threaten civilians. They decide he's a liability. Maybe they put him down. Accidents happen, you know? Doors left open, paperwork misplaced. Tragic, really. He smiled, small and mean. We both know you can live with a record, Mercer. You can't live without that dog. Gabe's heartbeat thudded in his ears, a slow, heavy drum. He pictured Atlas's nose pressed against a wire door, waiting. He imagined some overworked county vet reading a form that said aggressive and making a decision with a needle. He swallowed the surge of rage. He'd seen what happened when men acted on that first wave. There was always collateral damage. "I get one call," he said. Harlow shrugged. "That's what the law says," he said. "You want to waste it on a lawyer who's 3 hours away? Be my guest. In the meantime, I'll go. Check in on Atlas. Maybe get a head start on that liability paperwork." He stood. Gabe waited until the door closed behind him, then flexed his fingers once more. He didn't need a lawyer. Lawyers came later. He needed someone the sheriff couldn't bully. He closed his eyes for a moment, calling up a number he knew better than his own. Then he opened them and stared at the phone on the table. "Hey," he called, voice steady. "You gonna uncuff me for that call, or are we doing this like a hostage negotiation?" A deputy cracked the door, scowling. 2 minutes, he said, unlocking one wrist and pushing the phone toward him. "Make it fast." Gabe dialed. It rang twice. Then a familiar voice answered, clipped and alert. "Ruiz?" "Ma'am," Gabe said. "It's Mercer." There was the faint rustle of papers, the sound of a chair scraping back. "You're supposed to be decompressing on a beach, Mercer," Major Elena Ruiz said slowly. "Not calling me from a landline. Where are you?" "Harbor's End Sheriff's Office, Oregon," Gabe said. "I intervened in a situation with a local, man with a camera and an ego. His uncle is the sheriff. They've arrested me on false charges. They've taken Atlas into custody, labeling him aggressive. Sheriff implied he might—" He didn't finish the sentence. Silence hummed down the line. When Ruiz spoke again, her voice had gone ice cold. "Are you injured?" she asked. "No, ma'am," Gabe said. "Just bruised pride." "And Atlas?" "Physically fine, last I saw." His hand tightened on the phone. "Mentally confused." Ruiz exhaled once, sharp. "Well, that's about to change," she said. "Don't say another word to anyone. Don't sign anything. I'll call you back on this line when I'm at your front desk." "How far are you?" Gabe asked. "You're lucky I like that dog," Ruiz said. "I was already en route to Portland for a briefing. Detour adds 40 minutes. Keep breathing till then." The line clicked dead. Gabe set the phone down and reoffered his wrist to the deputy. "You heard the major," he said quietly. "I'm done talking to you." Animal control in Harbor's End shared a lot with the county maintenance yard, a wide, cracked concrete slab behind the station, lined with chain-link kennels and a few dented trucks. Maddie Hart locked the catchpole on the hook by the gate and leaned against the cinder block wall, catching her breath. She was 27, 5'5", and stronger than she looked, but hauling 90 pounds of confused German shepherd out of a gas station was not in her usual morning routine. She stared at Atlas. He stood in the center of the kennel, breathing hard, chest rising under his thick coat. He wasn't pacing like a typical stray. He wasn't cowering in the corner either. He was assessing, cataloging. "Yeah, you're not normal," Maddie said, his ears flicked toward her voice. "When they said aggressive, I pictured foaming at the mouth," she went on, more to herself. "You just look pissed. Can't say I blame you." Atlas walked to the gate and pressed his nose to the metal. His eyes flicked past her, toward the station, as if he could see through the walls. "You're not getting back there, big guy," Maddie said gently. "Not until your owner sorts his mess out, rules and all." He didn't seem to care about rules. He sniffed the air, then abruptly turned his head to the left, ears snapping erect. The fur along his spine rose like a line of static. He stepped away from the gate and toward the far side of the kennel, the side shared with an old equipment shed. He sniffed the crack between concrete and chain link, then backed up, muscles coiling. "Hey," Maddie said, alarmed. "What are you doing?" Atlas lunged at the fence, barking, not the confused high-pitched sound from the parking lot, but a deep, insistent bark she felt in her ribs. He scratched at the concrete, claws clicking against it, then rammed his shoulder against the chain link, hard enough to rattle the frame. "Whoa!" Maddie grabbed the gate, half expecting him to blow past it. "Calm down!" He ignored her. Every line of his body pointed toward the shed. He sniffed, barked louder, then whined, pulling his muzzle along the bottom edge of the fence, searching for an opening that wasn't there. Maddie frowned and stepped closer to the shed. nose wrinkling at a faint chemical tang under the usual mix of oil and damp. "What is that?" she muttered. She'd seen enough drug documentaries to recognize the containers stacked near the shed door, enough to know some smells didn't belong in a county maintenance yard. She pulled her phone from her pocket and started recording. Camera trained on Atlas. On the shed. On the way, his body language screamed alert. "This is Maddie Hart, Harbor's End Animal Control," she said into the mic. "Dog just impounded from Harbor Mart incident is having a strong reaction to storage shed 21. Marking this in case anyone says he's just aggressive. He's alerting to something." She sent the video to one of the few numbers in her phone labeled with a badge icon. Noah Price. By the time Major Elena Ruiz walked through the front doors of the Harbor's End Sheriff's Office, the atmosphere had shifted. It didn't happen all at once. It never did. First, an unfamiliar black sedan pulled up out front, government plates flashing through the drizzle. Then a woman in a dark blue Air Force service uniform stepped out, cap under her arm, ribbons marching across her chest. She moved like someone who understood both bureaucracy and bullets. The receptionist behind the glass looked up from her crossword, pen freezing midair. "Can I help you?" she asked. Major Ruiz set a folder on the counter. The covers parted just enough for the receptionist to see the seal on the first page. "I'm here for Staff Sergeant Gabriel Mercer," Ruiz said, "and his dog, Atlas. I'd like you to let your sheriff know that his day is about to get significantly worse." Within 10 minutes, Sheriff Harlow, who had never saluted anyone in his building before, found himself instinctively straightening his posture in front of a woman half his size. "Sheriff," Ruiz said, voice polite but edged, "I've just driven nearly an hour out of my way because one of my best pararescue men called and told me he was in your custody. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." Harlow cleared his throat. "We had a situation at Harbor Mart," he said. "Your man inserted himself into a local matter, threatened my nephew, and set a dangerous dog on him. We had to respond." Ruiz tilted her head. "Is that right?" she asked. She slid a piece of paper across his desk. "Because, according to this, Staff Sergeant Mercer has 4 commendations for restraint under fire and a record of exactly 0 civilian complaints across 12 years of service. That dog, by the way, sniffed out an IED under a hospital in Kandahar and has been credited with saving 32 lives. So, when you tell me they've suddenly snapped in a gas station, forgive me if I'm skeptical." Harlow flushed. "My nephew wouldn't lie about something like this," he protested. "He said he was attacked." "Good thing we have more than his word," a new voice said quietly. Noah Price stepped into the doorway, a stack of printed pages in one hand and his tablet in the other. He looked at the major, then at his boss. "I've got Harbor Mart security footage," Noah said, "and Lawson's live stream, and a video from Animal Control." Harlow's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing with those?" he asked. "My job," Noah said quietly. He turned to Ruiz. "Ma'am, with your permission, I'd like to show you something." They watched the footage in the small conference room off the bullpen. Harlow grew increasingly rigid as each angle removed one more piece of his version of the story. They watched Lawson knock over the mugs. They watched him toss the cash into the mess. They watched Gabe stand, not lunge, not shove, between a bully and his target. Then Noah played Maddie's video. Atlas, in his kennel, no sign of mindless aggression. Just intense focus, barking at the shed, pawing at the concrete. "What's in that building?" Ruiz asked. "Storage," Harlow said. "Tools, old paint, county records, nothing worth." "Then you won't mind if we take a look," she said. Her tone made clear it was not a request. Noah glanced at Maddie, who'd been summoned from Animal Control and now stood in the doorway, arms folded. "I can smell something from the fence line," she said. "And it's not paint." Harlow hesitated, caught between instinctive defensiveness and the dawning realization that this was spiraling beyond his control. Ruiz didn't wait. "Deputy Price," she said, "you will accompany me to that shed right now. Sheriff, you can either come with us or start drafting your statement for internal affairs. Your call." The walk to the back lot felt like a march toward something heavy and inevitable. Atlas heard them before he saw them. His ears snapped forward, body surging to the front of the kennel as soon as Gabe's scent hit the air. Gabe, still in cuffs but escorted now by a very quiet deputy, almost broke at the sound. "Atlas," he called. The dog exploded into barking, tail a blur for the first time since the arrest. He pressed against the chain link, whining. "First things first," Ruiz said sharply. "Unlock him." Maddie already had the keys out. Moments later, the gate swung wide. Atlas didn't blast past them. He trotted straight to Gabe, planting himself so close their bodies practically fused. Gabe dropped to one knee, ignoring the concrete grinding into skin. He pressed his forehead to Atlas's, breathing in fur, warmth, the grounding smell of home. "You're okay," he whispered. "You're okay. I've got you." Atlas whined, licking his face, paws dancing, body shaking with pent-up energy. "Mercer," Ruiz said softly. "We need him for a second." Gabe nodded once, hand still on the dog's neck. "Atlas," he said. "Search." The shepherd froze, focus snapping outward. He turned toward the shed without hesitation, nose working. He pulled Gabe with him, straining at the collar. Ruiz and Noah exchanged a look. "Open it," Ruiz said. Harlow fumbled with the padlock on the shed door, hands clumsy. Sweat dotted his forehead, despite the cool air. The door creaked open. The first thing that hit them was the smell, sharp chemical tang, undercut with something sweet and rotten. The second thing was the sight of the plastic tubs and vacuum-sealed packages stacked neatly along the wall, labeled in codes that meant nothing to the average passerby, and everything to anyone who watched the news. Fentanyl, pills, powder, enough to kill the town twice over. Atlas barked 3 times in rapid succession, pawing at one of the lower stacks, then sitting, eyes flicking to Gabe. "Good boy," Gabe breathed. Noah's stomach turned. "This is county property," he said slowly. "Held under your key, Sheriff." Harlow's face had gone chalk white. This isn't," he stammered. "We seized that. Evidence lockers were full. I told Lawson we needed storage until..." The words died in his throat. Until what? Until nobody asked questions? Until the right buyer came along? Major Ruiz exhaled, long and controlled. "Well," she said, "that's one explanation for why your nephew is so invested in making sure nobody questions his version of events. Deputy Price?" "Yes, ma'am?" "Go get Lawson Briggs out of whatever comfortable room he's currently holding court in," she said, "and bring some cuffs. Use the good ones." The arrest itself didn't look like a cinematic showdown. It looked like something messy closing in around a man who'd never been told no. Lawson was in a holding office, not a cell, scrolling through his comments, basking in the sympathy rolling in from people who hadn't seen the whole story. The moment he saw the uniforms in the doorway, Noah, Maddie, another deputy, and Major Ruiz behind them, he straightened, pushing his phone away, slipping the familiar mask of offended innocence over his features. "Finally," he said. "Can I go now? I've got a brand deal meeting in an hour, and No," Noah said. He stepped forward and, for the first time in his life, slapped cuffs on Lawson Briggs's wrists. "You're under arrest," Noah said, "for filing a false report, misuse of emergency services, and involvement in controlled substance distribution. You have the right to remain silent." The rest blended into a numb roar in Lawson's ears. He tried to laugh. "This is a joke," he said. "My dad will end your career." Noah's grip stayed firm. "Maybe," he said, "but after what Atlas just found, I don't think your dad's going to have much time for me." By the time the sun dipped behind the pine trees that evening, Sheriff Dean Harlow had been escorted from his office under the watchful eyes of county officials and one very grim major. Reporters had already begun to gather outside, drawn by sirens and rumors. Phones were held high, filming everything. Harlow didn't look at them. He looked at Gabe. The pararescueman stood near the steps, one wrist now bearing a faint red ring where the cuff had been. Atlas sat at his heel, gaze steady, not bothering to growl. There was no point. Predators knew when another predator had already been disarmed. Harlow opened his mouth, as if to say something. An apology, a justification, a curse. Nothing came out. He ducked his head and kept walking. Inside, in the quiet of a side hallway, Major Ruiz handed Gabe a folded form. "This clears you of all charges," she said. Officially, there was a misunderstanding, quickly resolved. Unofficially, she looked at him, eyes softer now. "You did what you always do," she said. "Walked toward the problem. I can't decide if that's bravery or a character flaw. Gabe managed a faint smile. I'm on leave, ma'am, he said. I thought I'd try it on civilian problems, see how it felt. And, she asked. He glanced down at Atlas, who was nosing his hand, seeking reassurance. It felt the same, he said. Messy, necessary. Ruiz nodded. We'll be keeping an eye on this town, she said. DEA's already interested. Briggs' money doesn't stretch as far as federal prison bars. As for you, you still have 3 weeks of decompression. I suggest you find a stretch of coast where nobody knows your name and your biggest decision is whether to toss a stick for your dog. He glanced toward the window where Harbor's End's main street rolled down toward the marina, toward Harbor Mart, its neon sign flickering faintly in the dusk. I have one thing to finish first, he said. She sighed. Of course you do, she muttered. Don't get arrested again, Mercer. I only do one emergency rescue per leave cycle. The bell above the door at Harbor Mart sounded very different that night. Not shrill, almost hopeful. When Gabe stepped in, Atlas at his heel, conversation stopped again, just like it had that morning. But this silence didn't feel like fear holding its breath. It felt like respect testing its voice. Eli was behind the counter, counting bills with new steadiness. Maya leaned on the grill, a dish towel over her shoulder. 2 fishermen sat at the counter, mugs of coffee between their weathered hands. An older woman with a church hat fussed with the lottery tickets. Eli saw Gabe first. His face lit up. You're back, he said. Didn't get to finish my breakfast, Gabe answered. Maya rounded the counter, wiping her hands nervously. They let you go? She asked. I mean, of course they did. It's handled, Gabe said. Lawson and the sheriff won't be making content for a while. Maya's eyes filled with something dangerously close to tears. I heard, she said. Noah came by, told us what you and that dog found. They had drugs in that shed, Gabe, enough to... I don't even want to think about it. And all this time, we thought they just had money. We didn't know what kind of rot came with it. She reached into her apron and pulled out a crumpled envelope. This is yours, she said, thrusting it at him. The money you gave me earlier, we're not taking it. He shook his head. It's not about the mugs, he said. Keep it, fix the sign, buy yourself a day off. She set the envelope on the counter and pushed it back toward him. You don't understand, she said. I've been bending to people like the Briggs family my whole life, taking whatever they throw on the floor because I was scared they'd take the rest. Today, you reminded me I don't have to do that. She pushed the envelope again. You came in for coffee and ended up blowing a hole in the facade this town has been living under for 10 years, she said. You don't pay me for mugs after that. You let me say thank you without making me feel small. He studied her for a moment. Then, slowly, he put his hand over hers, pressing the envelope between their palms. Then buy something for Eli, he said. College fund, new guitar, whatever he wants that doesn't include singing on camera. Eli flushed. I'm never singing again, he muttered. Not even in the shower. One of the fishermen chuckled. I was there, you know, the man said. Seen a lot of folks wander through this town. Seen a lot of people turn their heads when Lawson started his little shows. You're the first one who stepped in front of him and didn't flinch. It wasn't bravery, Gabe said. It was refusing to be a bystander. Those are different things. Different or not, the fisherman said, it changed something. At Gabe's knee, Atlas whined softly, tapping his paw against Gabe's boot. Maya looked down. He hungry? She asked. He always thinks he's hungry, Gabe said. We'll grab something on the road. Maya shook her head, already moving toward the small kitchen. You're not going anywhere until I feed both of you properly, she said. Sit. It was the first time anyone had given Gabe a direct order in weeks that didn't make him bristle. He sat. Atlas lay under the table, but this time his posture was loose, tail thumping occasionally as Eli took a cautious seat on the floor beside him, hand resting on the dog's shoulder. He really saved people? Eli asked quietly. More than I have, Gabe said. Seems like a good trade, Eli murmured, fingers absently tracing the fur at Atlas's neck. Man pulls people out of trouble with a dog. Dog pulls man out of jail with a nose. Fair partnership. A plate appeared in front of Gabe. Eggs, bacon, toast. The kind of simple food that tasted better than it had any right to because of who had made it and why. A second plate slid under the table, piled with unseasoned burger patties. "For your partner," Maya said. Atlas sniffed, looked up at Gabe for permission, then fell on the food with controlled enthusiasm. Gabe ate, sipped his coffee, listened to the small sounds of a community recalibrating itself around a new story. Not Lawson Live, not Briggs Builds, but the story of a dog who wouldn't stop barking at a shed and a stranger who refused to move aside. When he finished, he slid a fresh 20 under his cup. Maya opened her mouth to protest. "Non-negotiable," he said. "I don't leave places like this without paying my tab." She huffed, half laugh, half exasperation. "Stubborn," she said. "Both of you." "Occupational hazard," he said. At the door, Eli called after him. "Hey, Gabe?" He turned. "Yeah?" Eli swallowed, words catching. "Thanks," he said finally. "For not watching." Gabe nodded once. "Promise me something," he said. "Next time someone like Lawson walks in and starts a show, whether I'm here or not, you remember that you can say no, that you're allowed to stop being the stage." Eli squared his skinny shoulders, something newly solid in his gaze. "I'll remember," he said. Back in the truck, Atlas hopped into the passenger seat and turned 3 slow circles before settling, head on Gabe's thigh. Outside, Harbor's End moved through the first night of a different story. Laws would be written, statements taken, court dates scheduled, the sheriff's office would be repainted, the Briggs billboard would eventually come down. None of that was Gabe's job. His job was simpler now. He started the engine. The Tacoma shuddered, then settled into its familiar rumble. "You did good today," he said, hand in Atlas's fur. "Found the real rot. I just pointed." Atlas sighed, a deep, contented sound, and closed his eyes. Gabe pulled out of the lot. The neon sign of Harbor Mart blinked behind them, then disappeared into the dark. Fog waited ahead, swallowing the road, but he felt no dread. Somewhere out there were other small towns, other quiet injustices, other people who'd forgotten they were allowed to stand up. He couldn't fix all of it, but he could follow the road as far as it went, with a shepherd at his side who would always bark at the right door. And sometimes, that was enough. Power isn't the man with the camera or the name on the building. It's the choice to step between a bully and their target, even when nobody asked you to. It's the kid behind the counter finding his voice, the woman at the grill deciding she won't pick money up off the floor anymore, the deputy who looks at the evidence instead of the last name, the animal control officer who trusts a dog's nose over a polished story. Most days the world doesn't change with speeches or headlines. It shifts in small, unseen moments, when someone quietly refuses to watch harm happen, when someone loyal refuses to stop scratching at the door that hides the truth. And sometimes, all it takes to expose what's rotten is one person who won't move aside, and one dog who knows exactly where to bark.